All right, so picking up where I left off last week, I went ahead and finished packing out this windshield bed and bringing it up that 3/16 of an inch that I needed to get the back glass to be a little bit more flush. I also went around and used some T21 Lord Fuser to seal up the inside edge here so that that wasn't a spot where water can lay. The Fuser is a waterproof, so that's what I needed to use, not Bondo. So I have all these score marks here that I had to use in order to shape this thing here to go into the corner properly. So I had to fill those in on these inside corners. I got a little bit more put in here, but pretty much that's done. So I'm getting ready to dismount the doors, but before I do dismount the doors, I have to take these temporary cross pieces out. I want the doors to stay stable and keep their shape pretty much without the skin on it. So what I did was I salvaged the side impact bar out of the Challenger doors. I only got one out at this point. And you can see the side intrusion bar, I should call it, not impact bar. Side intrusion bar right here. It goes across. And it's a little tricky because this is hardened steel, so it's only spot welded on the inside to this part of the door shell here, and then on the other side in a similar fashion. It's about 6 or 7 spot welds here. I tried initially to drill it out from the back side once I got the skin off of the other door. Problem is like I said, it's that really hard, the hardened safety steel that you find some places on the structure of the Challenger. So I came around to this side here, which this is just mild steel on this side. Drilled out the spot welds on this side, and then it came out. So a little bit tricky, but anyway, decided to reintroduce it to this car, making sure that it doesn't touch the skin from point to point, but I went flush with it as if it was going to have the skin applied normally. Now this skin is going to be kicked out about an inch at this point because we're going wide body around the rear tires. So I just had to make sure that this bar didn't interfere with any of the inner workings of the window regulator, and it's attached at this strong point here that's all reinforced normally on the Charger door, the 6970 Charger door. So it's welded to that bracket there, which is also the lower hinge point. And then over here, it's welded in an area where it's right where the latch is over here. So and this diagonal gives it the best chance of, making this whole thing a little bit more rigid. At any rate, so I have to do the other side just yet before I can move on to the next step, which is going to be to start to take some of this stuff off of here, firewall, floor, get ready to raise this body up and move on with some of the other modifications that have to happen inside the car that I can't access readily right now. So that's where we're at. All right, here was what I was talking about this side intrusion bar. It has spot welds here and over here. It also has spot welds on this side over here. Now, if you try to drill this out from this side, you'll just ruin a drill bit. Unless you've got a carbide tipped drill bit, which I don't have. I used to have a couple of them, but they're long lost. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that's pretty much what's going on there. And then this is the reason why it's so difficult to recover any body panels off of these cars, because all the glue that they use around the edges, and then they've got this kind of rubbery foam that they put in there to kind of dampen down any sound or vibration against these inner elements. So this entire panel here, well, it's a perfect quarter panel. I'm going to have to hack it off because in order to take it off properly, it's impossible. This is a triple layer thick, and I just want to get rid of the outer skin, and you can't get between it to cut all the foam attachments. There's foam that fills all this area here, and then there's various glue spots. There's a really big rubbery foam section here that dams up from here to here, and that particular spot there, that stuff is really tough to cut because it's like very elastic. So at any rate, there's no, because it's triple thick, you can't see the inner panel actually from the inside, because there's another layer between this, the inside. There's another layer here between that and that, so it's not a matter of just going to the inside and then freeing it up from the inside either. So it's a shame, but taking these panels off neatly is so labor intensive, and you end up ruining them anyway, and you don't really get the entire panel off unless you want to sit there and drill out all these spot welds around this perimeter here, and you know, because this is all one piece here, all up into the roof and everything. So yeah, so you'd have to remove the window. Yeah, it's a big project, and it doesn't end up being pretty. And you could buy a replacement panel for much cheaper than the amount of labor that you would expend doing something like this. Usually when I want to make sure that I relocate these the hinges on these doors where I find them to be in the best location, so I don't have to fiddle around with all the adjustments in, out, up, down, forward, back, and all that stuff, is when I've got them set at this stage, I'll go ahead and I'll drill a couple of 1/8 inch holes through right into the door pillar. That way I can put these clecos in to those holes and relocate them when it comes time to reassemble it, and I'll be about 99% of where I need to be. If I have any kind of adjustment at all from that point on, it won't be too dramatic. But anyway, what I've done with this also is I've extended these hinges out probably another 3/8 of an inch so that they're flush with where they're supposed to be as far as how they should locate, so you can just eyeball it. That's what's proper. The other reason I added the extra length is because, especially with the bottom ones, it's difficult to get clecos in around this door bolt. So I've added a little length. That way also I can drill straight in. This lip of this door doesn't allow you to hold the drill straight 90 degrees to this. And for this to work the best that it can work, you want to get the hole as straight, as square as possible. So that's that. All right, so the floor's out of the car now. I cut away the subcowl here. Left what I want to leave, as much as I want to leave, I should say. Hopefully I won't have to cut too much more of that subcowl out. I like the strength that it's lending to the windshield bed right there. The firewall is drilled out, and it's just clamped back up on there because the car is pretty wiggly and waggly without that to stabilize it. So next I'll have to get in there and connect up these two corners over here and stabilize the back, because right now it's a little I've got to get some crisscross bracing in there also to try and get this thing here stabilized a little bit better than what I have right now. Before I go lifting it, that's the next thing. I've got to get my lifting kit out, and I've got to modify it back here so that it goes around all of this custom panel work that I have on this car. Normally it would just go on the inside, but there's a lot of obstruction since I put the custom tail lights on this one here. The front should be pretty simple. I'll just have to notch out this little ledge here and drop it down here and bolt it up to the hinge points before I can lift it in the front. So that's what we'll be up to next. Like I said, first I got to stabilize this with some cross bracing, and then connect this these window panels here near the quarter panels to the C-posts a little more solid than they are right now. Make sure everything's nice and square before I lift it and release everything. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now, and we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so that took some doing. I finally got the floor out of the car, and I took it off of its that little rig that I had to make sure that it was all decked out while I hung the quarter panels on the roof and all of that good stuff. So that whole rig is out from under there. I hooked my chain falls up to the beams over here, one in the front and one in the back. I had to do a little modification to my both of my little pickup devices here. That one not so much, just some welding and some holes that had to be relocated just a little bit. And over here, because this bar used to work With a conventional tail from the inside, I had to transfer it to the outside because there's too much blocking this to work on the inside anymore. So I have these extensions here, and then there's a plate, and then it's threaded. It's a quarter-inch plate. It's threaded for a half-inch bolt, and that goes through there's two plates that support the bumper, and the bolt goes through those plates, 3/16 plates, into this on both sides. And then at the center, there's just a lift point here, and again, chain fall up to the beam that gets it up off the ground. Once I got it up off the ground, I modified my body stands a little bit, fortified them a little bit, stopped them so they're a little more triangulated so they wouldn't wobble as much. They're not meant for heavy duty stuff, but this has stabilized it pretty good. And I've got this cross beam actually bolted to these two lift points here. So you can see I've got a level going across the back. Make sure that it's decked out in that direction. I also did that across the front. I put a beam across the pinch welds here and level it across the car in the front. And then you can see that level over there sitting on the rocker. I leveled it both front to rear on these rockers. That's to make sure that as I proceed with the rest of what I've got to do here, I don't get anything twisted up, because I am going to cut out that reinforcement, some of that reinforcement to the back window, in order to make a smoother transition for the headliner to go back to the back window. So I have to do some modification back there. Also, I want to join these corners of the package tray to the pockets that I made for the quarter windows, and I want to make sure that the car is not twisted when I do that, which without the floor in it, without the firewall on it, very easy to twist this up. And I don't want to weld anything to this car, twist it up. I want it to be as flat and as true as it can possibly be under the circumstances. At any rate, that's where I am right now. That was a pretty big cleanup, moving a lot of furniture around to accommodate everything here, because the whole car had to move forward in order to get to these two pickup points here and get up off the ground. Okay, so I'm starting to do some of the trimming, starting here at the front at the dash bed. You know, people wonder why I go through all the trouble to make these videos, but the last project I went a little bit more detailed than usual with a lot of the aspects of my build, mainly for my own reference, because you wouldn't believe how much stuff you forget when you do this stuff. And so I remembered on the last project that I had trimmed this inner corner to allow the car to sit down on the new Challenger a little bit better, and I had left probably about 3/4 of an inch more of this inner corner, and as a result, I had to keep trimming away on the new Challenger in order to get this one corner to drop down. And I'd like to leave that part of the new car, intact if possible. So I'm just going to trim this up a little bit higher, right up to the point where this rolls back under here. I'll drill out these spot welds here, pull this corner out, and then I'll patch this all in, but with a square panel using some 70 thousandths steel, and refortify that area right there. I've already taken the kick panels out. Nice thing about this car is everything is in pretty good shape, so those kick panels, other than the fact that I had to trim it out over here, see, this folds up and over top, the kick panel actually folds up. It's trapped between these two layers, the sub cowl and the door pillar here. So I just trimmed it straight across and then down around this piece here, but pretty much the whole kick panel came out in one piece, and there's a pretty nice bracket in there for holding the what do you call it? The emergency brake, I guess, is what it holds there on the side, but it's all pretty clean. And anyway, it's nice not to have to just hack everything out and have a bunch of rust. This was a pretty clean car all the way around. So it's easy to just drill out these spot welds and just pull the panel off cleanly, as it was to just unscrew all of this stuff that hadn't been installed. It was just fit up with screws, so I was able to take out the inner rocker and everything else. Both the front and rear inner rockers came out cleanly, so they're just set aside. It's brand new sheet metal there. Anyway, so I'm proceeding with this right here. All right, I took the opportunity while this was accessible to rust-proof the inside, clean up the rust with a wire brush, and then go ahead and got some weld-through primer on the edges here, and then some regular heavy rust primer on the inside there before I close it up here in this upper corner. Okay, so I've got this corner backfilled in with some sheet metal. Let me see if I can position this up here. You can see what I pulled out of here. So this piece came out of here, and this point of contact would create some interruptions trying to drop this down as far as it needs to go on the chassis. So bringing it out, taking it out all together, and then reshaping a piece to go in here to attach to both this inner, there's a small brace in here that was what was left of this kick panel, and then welding it solid to the bottom of the windshield bed. It goes in, folds over, and then attaches plug welds to this seam here, this vertical seam on the door pillar. Also, what I've gone ahead and done is on the Challenger, there's this little hole. As you can see, it's got like a molded area here, and this is where the rubber boot that connects the wiring to the door goes. You can see it's on an angle here. So rather than try and create a flat opening on the door jamb over there that reflects this shape, I've gone around and cut the panel out of this side already. So I've cut this piece out over here and went ahead and mended it in on the door hinge pillar right here. So now it has that same angle that is meant to help the cabling transition a little bit without it being abrupt 90 going into this door jamb. So also what I did was I went ahead and I hit it with a little zinc chromate primer there, just so that it's, again, holds off the flash rust for a little while I'm working on the rest of this stuff. So it's time to go around and do the other side now, and that's what I'm up to next. All right, so that's side number 2, all spruced up and cleaned up on the inside. So I'll be getting to starting to trim these rockers off, get that prepped up. I'll show you what that's about. Basically, this is what it looks like. If you were looking at a cross-section of the Challenger rocker, you can see that over here. This is a pretty beefy piece right here. So this is how you start out. Now, of course, this is all filled with foam, so it's a real pain in the butt to get this apart. But anyway, so here's the floor of the car right here. And then what happens first is this outer half is removed over here. Then, leaving about 3/8 to 1/2 of an inch from this point to this point, this lower flange is then trimmed away, leaving you with this and the pinch weld and a cavity, basically. So the next thing that happens is you take the 2x4 083 wall frame rail, and then you fit that in to this pocket here, which comes out even with the upper pinch weld over here. Then this is adding the when the car comes down and the rocker the Charger, the 68 Charger, 69, 70 Charger rocker comes down. Now this part over here normally would run at a less of a steep angle back to the normal pinch weld on an old car. So what has to happen is this gets trimmed to about 1 7/8 inches from this crease here, and then it gets tweaked down a little bit like this so that it can meet the bottom of this 2x4 right here. Lastly, to fill in the bottom is to create a pinch weld of 3/16, 1.5 by 1.5 angled steel, hot rolled, and so it'll be matched up right here so that there's just one line of spot welds right along here. What I don't do is I don't weld this solid so that any moisture or anything that collects up here will have a place to weep out on the bottom of this rocker between this and this. So this is welded up, spot welded also, along the what's left of the bottom of the back of the frame rail over here. So, and then once you do this is a really strong pinch weld because it's connected to this 2x4 piece of steel, and that's all connected front to rear on the car. And when you go to jack up this car, you can jack it up anywheres along this pinch weld and the car won't flex. Unlike right now, you have to kind of pick up, there's only a couple of places you can jack this car up. I generally try to, when I can, jack them up from the engine cradle in the front. Sometimes you can't do that because of clearance, depending on how far along in the build you are. But there's one place just right about here that's tripled up on the rocker that allows you to lift up on the car here, and then there's a jack point over here. It's an actual rubber stop to a really strong position back here. But if you just jack back there, of course the back of the car comes up and leaves the front of the car slightly down. So it's a real pain to get a jack. If you're trying to put the car on jack stands, your jack is in the way most of the time of where you have to put the jack stands. So generally, these things, if you don't have a lift, these things are hard to work on. Plus, they weigh a ton. They're like a, what is it, 5,000 pound, 2 tons actually, close to 5,000 pounds. So anyway, so that's where we are right now, and that's where I'm going to leave it for this week. And next week, I'm going to continue to whittle away at some of the pieces that I know have to be cut away and deal with that back window structure. And then after that, we'll start making the headliner, as much of it as we can before we set it down, because this car has, or will have, hopefully we'll be able to keep that high aspect package tray over there, because I have that in my car because of the back window not being a tunnel back any longer. But what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to remove all of this structure out of here down to about this level here to get both cars mended this time. When I did my car, I left all this structure in, which meant that in these corners, I had to keep raising the car up and whittling away both at this structure and the structure of the C-post. I don't want to do that with this car. I want the car to come down, be mated, and then I can take this, which is just sheet metal, and I could reintroduce this panel, which has the hooks that the backs of the seats connect to, so we don't have to alter the seats. And it carries the amplifier and also the speakers in the back. So hopefully we can keep all of that structure. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.